Hi, welcome back to the Colorblind Architect Podcast. Today's post is back in the car, and I am driving. Today's a very busy day, and like it is for me many days, I am constantly working. However, I did want to just touch in and just share a few thoughts on some things that have frankly kind of surprised me, namely the polls. I am still just flabbergasted by the polls. The polls just seem all out of whack. And I'm specifically talking about the presidential polls. Here it is, it's October, mid-October 2020, and Joe Biden is leading by double digits in the polls. And yet, all the evidence, everything that I'm seeing other than the polls just suggests to me that the polls aren't real. For me, I'm looking at it and I'm seeing we've got great improvements in the economic numbers. We ended up having far fewer COVID deaths than we expected. That's still ongoing, but there's a lot of reasons to think, a restoration or a continuation of our current path is not that crazy to think, especially considering how gaffe prone Joe Biden is and how he's not even really all that liked on the left. And so again, I'm sitting here thinking Trump should be winning this easily. All the evidence that I'm seeing, and granted, there's a lot more factors that go into that calculus in my head as to what I think is going to happen with the election. It seems to me like Trump should be winning by a landslide. It doesn't make any sense to me. Add to that the fact that I know very, very, very few people that are telling me openly that they're voting for Biden. Most people that I've met, that I've talked to, they say one of two things. They either say, yes, I'm definitely voting for Trump and you can't stop me. I'm going to crawl over broken glass to get to the polls. I'm going to vote and I'm going to do it. The other alternative for the non-Biden voters that I've seen is a lot of people, when I talk to them, they'll tell me, well, I don't want anybody to know, but I'm voting for Trump. I think he's despicable with his tweets, but man, you can't argue with the results. That seems to be the ongoing theme of just about every conversation I have with people. Now, on occasion, I do have people, friends, acquaintances, who openly say they're voting for Biden. Some of them even saying, hey, I'm voting for Biden because Trump is just bad for the, how do they put it, the decorum of the office of the presidency. And in other words, they're more worried about how it looks. They're more worried about how it looks as president than the actual results. They think that somehow some polished, well-spoken politician is going to be a better fit for getting things done than Donald Trump, which maybe with some politicians. I could totally see that with someone like Mike Pence. Absolutely, I think he would be a better president than Donald Trump. But that's not really an argument against Donald Trump, because after all, if Trump dies, Mike Pence is the man. So, I'm not really worried about it. And from any objective standpoint, the more qualified people for the office of the president they're all on the Republican side. I can't think of a single Democrat candidate, a single Democrat politician that I would trust with picking up the trash on the side of the street, let alone being president of the United States. Now, granted, I am very, very biased here. As you know, you've seen my other videos. I'm very open about the fact that I think the Democrat Party is to the point now where they are irredeemably evil as a party. Now, again, I make it really clear that individuals can change, but organizations sometimes are just not worth the time and effort to try to resurrect. Now, maybe I'm going to be wrong. Maybe the Democrats are going to clean themselves up, and by 2024 we're going to have, the most morally pure and sweet and wonderful party. Frankly, I don't think political parties work that way. I think they tend towards corruption as the natural course of evolution. And it takes a lot of effort, both internal and external, within a political party to keep it from becoming overly corrupt. And with that said, I should point out that my personal opinion is that the Republican Party is... They're corrupt too. Not nearly as corrupt as the Democrats, but still very corrupt. So, what does this have to do anything? I don't know. I'm just looking at these polls, and I just don't understand them. They don't make any sense to me. Like I said, I could be totally misreading the public. I could be totally misreading the American people. And maybe the American people are so far gone, so far divorced from good morals, that maybe Joe Biden is the right man for the job. And I say this with a deep note of terror and sadness. Because, let's face it, Joe Biden he's a liar. He's horribly corrupt. I mean, just look at all the information that's come out from the New York Post concerning his son, Hunter Biden. And this is with us already knowing that other members of the Biden family have also been enriched by the fact that Biden was vice president for 8 years. During that period of time, the Biden family fortune went way up. Now, look at, in contrast, how much the Trump fortune has plummeted since he became president. This has actually been a horribly painful financial time period for the Trump family. They have lost tons of deals, tons of money, because they're in the White House. They're busy serving the people, so they're not going to be busy making deals. Whereas while Biden was vice president under Obama, his fortune skyrocketed. He's got really fancy houses. His kids, his other family members, they all have increased tremendously. And now that's not 100% evidence that he was corrupt, but read the New York Post story. I mean, come on. It's pretty clear what's going on here. And whether or not you believe the New York Post information or not, that's for you to decide. When I first heard about the New York Post stories, honestly, I was a bit skeptical, because the provenance of how the laptop came into the possession of the people, the repair shop there in Delaware, and then eventually to the New York Post. It did sound a little bit suspicious, but what really tells me that it may be true is the response from the mainstream media, the other newspapers, the response from the social media, how quickly, and before the New York Post would even be able to share the stuff on social media was already shutting it down. And they've never done that before on any other supposedly fake news. And they're not even using the argument that it's fake news as the reasoning for why they shut it down. They're using the reasoning of it was ill-gotten, hacked material. Okay, well, let's noodle that one for a moment. The New York Times published tax data of Donald Trump. Nobody had a problem sharing that. None of the social media companies blocked that. And yet, that was ill-gotten. It was clearly not authorized by Donald Trump or anybody in his family to release that information. And also, it didn't have anything damning in it. I mean, I know the New York Times tried to portray it as $750 owed. Yeah, because he had already prepaid several $1 million in taxes in the intervening months before that. And the $750 was what he owed at the time of taxes. Now, any of you who own a business, you know exactly what this is. You understand that you prepay your taxes throughout the year, and then April 15th comes back, you're not getting a refund check usually. And ideally, you're not getting a refund check. Ideally, you're going to have pretty close to zero left due on your balance. Because the whole idea of the April 15th tax filings is for you to balance up for the tax year prior. That tax year prior, you're supposed to be paying in taxes along the way. So you come to April 15th, if you're getting a huge refund, that means you way overpaid during the previous year and you're getting money back. Versus if you owe a lot, that means you way underpaid, which obviously puts a much bigger pinch on you at the moment of April 15th if you're paying it right then and there, a much larger amount. So, if, like Donald Trump in 2016, you end up owing only $750 on April 15th, that means your accountants did a freaking awesome job of making sure that you were prepaying the appropriate amounts so that you were relatively close to zero on what you owed at April 15th, so that your overall tax burden was covered largely during the year, but not more. Now, back to Biden. What do we learn from the New York Post article? We learn that Hunter Biden was very corrupt. He was peddling his father's name for influence and for money. And we also learned that he was arranging meetings with these corrupt oligarchs and other people with Joe Biden. Again, there hasn't been any denial of these claims by the Biden camp. There hasn't been any denials by the other media companies. It seems like a legit article. The New York Post is a very well-established newspaper, so they are taking it on their own liability publishing this. So I can't imagine that they didn't have their lawyers scour over that article to be really careful to make sure it was really clean. Now, it could have still been a total false thing. And the fact that it's coming in mid-October shouts October surprise. I mean, definitely screams October surprise. So, I mean, that's always a possibility that this is just FUD. But if it is true, then shouldn't we be investigating it? If there's a chance that it's true, shouldn't we be investigating it? Shouldn't we be trying to make sure that the man that we could be electing president was not peddling his political position for money through his son? It's a huge allegation, and it is the worst example of corruption in American politics that, quite frankly, I've ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen worse corruption allegations. This is really, really bad stuff. So, yeah, what's the truth here? And I'm going to say, from my standpoint, the polls don't make sense. The news media, the mainstream news media, the leftist media, doesn't make any sense. They're hiding so much from the American public. And then on top of that, the voting public, if they really are where those polls are, that doesn't make any sense to me either. So here's where I stand. I have to admit, I'm not really worried. The weird part is that I should be kind of worried based on what I'm seeing of the polls, and everything that I know about, the election and where we are at this time. I should be a lot more worried. But yet, I've got a peaceful, easy feeling. I'm not really worried. It's the weirdest thing, but I just feel deep in my heart that everything's going to be okay. I don't know what that means other than to say I feel very strongly that everything's going to be okay in the end. And with that, I bid you adieu. I'm the Colorblind Architect. Peace out.